All right, it's been a while, but RU Game is back. Game on indeed, and first time we're talking a little Habs here on the video podcast. And a gentleman who I met back in June, I believe, Sunil of HabsCave, which is, of course, if you're a Canadiens fan and you're on Instagram, you've clearly seen the posts from either his place or some of the folks or different even artifacts or items that he's encountered over the years. And it's a really fun Instagram to follow. He's on Facebook as well and Twitter, etc. But really more known for the Instagram. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm game. Are you game? I'm game. I'm open to whatever you got to throw at me, but I appreciate the time and I appreciate you having me on. Thanks a lot.
Well, it looks like you're a Montreal Canadiens fan.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. There's a lot to get into about where something like this even begins. It's been obviously quite a journey for you, meeting some pretty amazing people along the way, and I guess your profile in the city is growing, as we speak. So let's start with the basics. Why do you like the Montreal Canadiens? Where did it even start for you?
Well, growing up like every good Canadian boy, you play hockey, and of course you're living in the mecca of hockey. So of course I'm going to fall in love with the Canadiens, and I'm 45, so my generation was the Patrick Roy generation, and just
45 as well. I get you.
I played goalie, and of course, everybody wanted to be Patrick when they played goalie on the street, on the ice, or whatever it was. So it really started in the early '80s. My father actually, he had a job, working on lighting, and occasionally he'd get access to the Montreal Forum, and he'd be fixing lights. Once in a while, because he knew I loved hockey, he'd I'd tag along. And I have some awesome memories of just being with my dad in the Forum, doing some, pretty interesting ththings, let's just call it, on the lighting. And, it just started from there. And, he was, I'm first generation. My father came here in the late 60s. He's all about, education, school. He never really took the time to watch sports or anything like that. But I did, so I was just loving everything. He could care less where he was, really. It was just a job. He knew I liked it, so he'd bring me along. And, it started there, and, I had access, and, I started with hockey cards like every other, Canadian boy.
Sure.
I just started with hockey cards.
Oh, peachy.
So
yeah,
that's where it all started. Hockey cards, and just basically, watching the success of the Canadiens, we didn't have much going on besides the Expos. I love the Expos too. Don't get me wrong. I love the Expos as well. But playing hockey myself, of course, it was easy to fall in love with the Canadiens.
Yeah, and so obviously, as you grew older and your economic situation grew as well, you were able to, I guess, accrue, collect more and more stuff. Was there always an intention to amass more and more Canadiens items? Yeah, how did you get to how did the snowball start going down the hill?
Well, it was never really my intention. It just, like I said, it started with hockey cards. And, as I got older, my allowance increased. And, I got my first job at McDonald's at 15. And I was just able to spend more money on Habs stuff. I was always collecting Habs memorabilia. It didn't have to be very big. And even now to this day, it doesn't have to be an expensive item. I just love to find an item with the logo on it. And it really was just fun hunting for anything with the Montreal Canadiens logo on it. And I had this little sort of collection growing in my room. It kept growing a little bit bigger. And as you said, as I started to earn a little bit more money, I started to buy different items. And, I couldn't display everything. I was living at home. I had a bedroom. I would display certain items. Something that sticks out to me. One of my first items was Patrick Roy jersey autographed.
Oh, wow.
And even then, back then, it wasn't people weren't really collecting those items, really. And I remember going to the frame shop, and I said, look, I want to display this frame. I want to display this jersey in a frame behind glass. the guy looked at me like I was nuts. He said, "What do you mean you want to put a shirt under behind glass?" I said, "Look, just build me the frame, and I'll take care of the rest." And that's how early on I was, I think, in this sort of collecting industry. And then, I had that jersey on my wall, and then, I would slowly, get some 8x10s autographed, this, that, and the other, and start getting them framed up. And it just grew from there. I had a closet full of jerseys, autographed, some not. And, I started to collect stuff. Yes, it started to accumulate rather quickly because it does become an addiction. And the hunt is something that I'm constantly seeking. It's the hunt, right? And it just started to grow. I didn't always have a place to display it. I did not have an intention to create this space at the beginning, but as I grew older, I bought my first condo. It had like this mezzanine room upstairs that nobody really wanted to go into, and I'm married, and I have to pass everything through the wife, and she's like,
Yeah.
do what you want up
that
there.
was, I really wanted to work up to that,
Oh,
but
gosh, yeah.
that's the number one question I think I would have is you mentioned prior to us chatting that you've been married 18 years, wonderful, very cool. What kind of lady, what kind of special lady did you manage to land that was okay with what is happening behind you?
Oh my gosh, I get asked that question so many times, and everybody wants to meet, this wonderful lady who I call my wife Diana, who has allowed me to go to this sort of like this insane this kind of like
These lengths, yeah,
and these lengths, and basically, she's happy to see me happy, and like it's at the end of the day, it's a hobby. I'm passionate about it, and it's great. I mean, she sees the joy it brings me, and she knows like it's all nostalgia driven, and all of this sort of like brings me back to a certain age, and it keeps me young at heart. And she's okay with it. It's not sort of alcohol drinking or any of that kind of bad stuff. My father-in-law always reminds her, look, he's not at a bar. He's not at this like kind of seedy place with his buddies. He's downstairs. Let him do what he wants. You know where he is. You can keep track of him anytime you want. He's always down there. So you know what? It's true. Any free time I have, I love to be down here, rearranging stuff, looking at stuff. And she's allowed me to sort of. She does have her limits. I will say she does.
Oh,
have
okay.
Limits.
I got to hear. So,
limits.
What has she said no to? Because based on what's around you, there hasn't been a lot of no's, I would think.
I mean, yeah, there's been no's. I mean, I would love to, head to the direction of artwork, where like paintings of certain players, and
right.
And I'm like, well, wouldn't that look nice in the family room, or wouldn't that look nice? No, absolutely not. I have a staircase going up to, coming down to the basement, and she was away on a business trip, and I did have like it just started to crawl up there, and there's a hard line there now. So I'm up the staircase, and that's it. I can't go any higher now. It's written in stone. I can't. I know my limits too. So,
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So what is there? So again, yes, she has her limits, and certainly it's good for her to set limits for you. It helps you as well. But there has to be something that you really wanted that you couldn't get, either because it doesn't fit in your current space, or because she said no to, or what?
Yeah. So, but basically, the answer to that is artwork. I would really love to. I love supporting local artists. Definitely, love supporting local.
Well, you got to start making some room downstairs and throwing
absolutely.
some pictures away.
I would love to, and and they've approached me, and I've been offered some wonderful pieces, but I feel really guilty accepting a piece that I can't display properly.
Right.
And so there are certain. I have young kids. Let's just put it this way: the basement is fairly big. I am a general contractor and a cabinet maker. I built the basement myself. So I know what space, like the kids have a space down here.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
They're not always going to be 8 and 10 years old. They're going to turn into teenagers where they're not going to use that space. And, I'm eyeballing it. No question. I have plans. I know, I have certain pieces already that have, stored away, just like I did for this.
Right.
That are ready to go. Like they're ready to go.
Are they Leaf fans?
Oh my gosh, no. I mean, unfortunately, I mean, I have a lot of family that lives in Toronto, and
Okay.
it's always an interesting back and forth. And yeah, so the kids are ardent Habs fans, just like I am, and there's just no, they know how I feel about the Leafs. They know how this family is supposed to feel about the Leafs.
Oh,
So
that's
there's
funny.
that. That's a good
Yeah,
thing. So
that's great.
yeah.
So, in terms of, are there items in there like do you itemize things? Do you catalog things? Do you write down how many pieces you have? Is there anything
So
like
it's
that, or you just kind
interesting.
of
Yeah,
accumulate
I
and
mean,
put it
sorry
up?
to interrupt you. The basically in the collector's world, there's like, I do talk to and meet a lot of collectors, and a lot of them are serious collectors. I consider myself one. We have that envelope, the just in case envelope, meaning, if something happens to me, here's this envelope, Diana. Open that envelope, because you're not selling this stuff at a garage sale. It's not just going to be given away. So yes, I do keep an itemized list of what I bring in terms of value and this and that, and I do sort of keep that up to date every once in a while. And other than that, I mean, I just document everything. Because of the Instagram page, I document so much with photographs. I mean, it's that's such a great platform for me to catalog all my items. And that's so I keep track of everything. It's itemized, it's listed. And yes, I do have insurance. It's a separate insurance for collectibles and art. Like, a lot of people like to ask that question.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not
and
covered under
you
your
live out
normal health
west,
insurance.
there can be flooding and things of that nature. Have you ever
Yes,
had
yeah.
any issues?
We came close. We came close a few times, but knock on wood, there was we're good. So
All right, so
yeah,
rapid fire now. Here we
yeah,
go.
sure.
Craziest Habs item you have in there.
Craziest Habs item. It's a set of Patrick Waugh's full equipment from 1990. So we're talking about his stick, his glove and blocker and pads. That he actually, it was a lockout season. He used it for half the season, including the All Star game. And funny story, it was given to his neighbor as a gift, the set, and he had to take it back when the lockout happened because he couldn't get his actual equipment to film a Gatorade commercial.
Oh
So
wow.
he took it back from his neighbor, and it's in the Gatorade commercial with Michael Jordan, where they cut Michael Jordan into it. So that's definitely a set. A set, to have a complete set is very rare, and it's in great condition. And yeah,
That's
I would
pretty
say
cool.
that's probably the craziest sort of collector's item I have.
Okay. The funniest item that makes you laugh whenever you look at it?
Oh man, I have. If I could show it to you, I mean, it's everyone's always on a hunt. Like, all my friends and family are always hunting for something I don't have.
Right.
And my buddy was at the championships, ball hockey championships in Czechoslovakia, of all places. He found a Russian doll set in a collector's store, a Montreal Canadiens Russian doll set.
Oh wow.
But what was funny, it was current. So, like, Suzuki's in there, Caulfield's in. So I'm like, there's guys right now making these little Russian dolls of the Habs, and they're current. And I'm like, this was made very recently.
I would
So
hope
to
that
me,
Caulfield's one of
that
the
always blows
smaller
my
ones,
mind.
right?
Yeah. It goes down to the little teeniest, one with, like, and again, it's got Suzuki and Caulfield in there. So I'm like, this is being made now as we speak. It's not an item I've ever seen before or anybody has seen before.
Well,
So
I would hazard a guess to say that it's probably not NHL licensed,
no,
but
absolutely not.
that's very cool. That's
Absolutely
very
not. So,
cool.
but that's kind of an oddity that
Yeah.
that I definitely bring out when somebody asks me that, what's the strangest piece.
Now,
So,
what impresses people who come to visit the most? Is there an item or two there? That
it's not. I don't think it's never an item in particular. I think that I am proud of the way I've displayed everything, and I think it's like there's a lot of room down here. So a lot of collectors have I'm blessed with a lot of space. Like, let's just be frank. But my priority was, when I designed the HabsCave, was to have a space for entertaining and to watch Habs games. So I can fit comfortably 30 people down here. All 30 people have a seat.
wow.
And so I'm proud of that. But then everything else surrounds that sort of entertaining aspect. I have pool table, air hockey, bubble, super checks, foosball, poker, ping pong, and like, I love to see it all being used. So I think when people come down here, what they're amazed at is it's a lot larger than what they see on Instagram. So that's always the first thing I hear is I didn't think it was so big. And
Right.
then secondly, they just they compliment me on how everything is so well sort of curated and displayed. You know, collecting items is one thing, but having it framed and displayed properly is a whole other thing. So, you know, for me in my generation, I really feel like like sports memorabilia has become our generation's artwork. You know,
That's
not
fair.
a lot of 40-year-olds are going to buy a painting at a gallery, perhaps, but you know what? They might buy a Jordan jersey, a Brady jersey, or a Watt jersey and frame that and put that up. You know, so
Now,
you know, at the end, and in terms of investment, you know, that it's an investment as well. So
right. Yeah. No, there's that. Then, and that brings me to my next question. So there, part of my fabric, my background is baseball. I just, that was
yeah,
always something big for me. And there's a gentleman in Côte Saint Luc who passed away, I believe, named Johnny Elias, and
yes,
he had a collection in his house of baseball items. That he used to be the batting practice pitcher for the Expos, and
okay.
he was just well known. And so he was covered in the paper, and then somebody came when he was in Florida and stole a whole bunch of stuff out of his house. So how do you mitigate that? How do you manage those worries?
You know, that concern is always, you know, at the top of my head. I'll be honest with you. You know, I do have a lot of, you know, security in the house, and it's a little bit overboard. I'm paranoid about that stuff. You know, at the
Sure.
same time, before I started my Instagram page, you know, when I started it, you know, uh, my family was skeptical. They're, you know, older school, and they're like, "Look, you're really putting yourself out there. You know,
Yeah.
like, you know, why are you doing this?" And oftentimes when people meet me, you know, they oftentimes collectors thank me. They're like, you know, I don't have the courage to do what you do. I have some amazing things, and I just don't have the courage to put it up and tell the world that I have it. You know, so yeah, security is always top of my mind, and you know, how do I mitigate that? You know, I don't want to live my life thinking I'm going to be robbed every day. I certainly don't. You know, I try to lead with love, starting, you know, first of all, and I hope that there are more good people than bad people. But look, if somebody wants to do something, they'll do something. But I will tell you this: they will need a lot of time. They will need a lot
All
of
right, let's
time
move
down here.
on. Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
need to dwell on that. Yeah. One of the other fascinating things that's popped up in reality TV over the last 10 years is collecting, treasure hunting, pawn stores, all these types of things where you watch someone bargain and negotiate and that kind of thing. So do you have stories on that where you get a tip and you have to go somewhere to buy something, or are you traveling far for
Absolutely.
this stuff? Are you buying it online? How's that going?
Well, initially, you know, it when I started, it was very difficult to find any items because there wasn't really a big market for this kind of stuff. So initially, I got connected with someone. His name was Robert Gerard, who they call him the Godfather of Montreal Canadiens memorabilia, and this was about 20 years ago. And you know, he was really the pioneer of getting sort of Habs players to sign items and to start selling things. And I met him early on, and so he's always sort of guided me and pointed me in the right direction. You know, it's a lot easier now. I mean, because of my Instagram page, I'm constantly being bombarded with people trying to sell me stuff, or that I have this, I have that. What's that worth? What do you think? Is it valuable? That's great. So I really do love that. My wife doesn't love that aspect so much, but I love that aspect. But early on, you know, like you know, Kijiji was a great source. You know, I had this sort of routine. I mean, it's pretty crazy, but you know, before I'd hit the sack, I'd go through Kijiji with certain keywords, you know, and now it's like Facebook Marketplace. Look, and I'm guilty
Yeah.
of still doing it. And I will look through certain keywords in certain areas, and I will try to find that treasure because it still exists. There are still pieces out there that people don't know exactly where they're from, what they are, and who they came from.
Mm,
So I'm always looking for that diamond in the haystack. But there are still pieces that I'm looking for. I would say less and less now,
mm.
in terms of collecting stuff. But yeah, that's how I would start online. You know, the online thing was great because you know, it just gave everybody access to everybody's
Yeah.
stuff basically. So
And then,
it was easy.
who are some of the, you've had people over there to see your collection. Who are some of the more notable folks who've been
Yeah,
there?
no, I mean, so going sort of getting back to my point about I have a lot of like, it's not now I'm really searching experiences almost, like I just, it's not even so much about, an item. It's more about an experience that I like. And I really enjoy, the opportunity to have a player down here. It really is priceless for me as a Habs fan. It's, I have to sort of, I get choked up and I sort of have to be emotional later after they leave, I try to hold it together. But I've had, Chris Nyland down here, Gilbert Dion, Yvon Lambert, Benoit Brunet, Stéphane Richer. This week we have Denis Savard headed over here.
That's incredible.
Shane Corson's going to be headed out here too in another month.
But how are they finding you?
Well, I connect with them through the Instagram page, really. They follow me or I follow them somehow, some way, and I'm not shy. I'll start a conversation or we'll go back and forth. Oftentimes players have a lot of questions for me. They ask me, hey, Sunil, what do you think this is worth? Hey, do you know someone who would buy this from me, or where do I bring this? So it starts that That's way, awesome. Actually. With Chris Nyland, we've sort of built up a relationship that I'm proud of. He's such a hero to me, and it's not even the on ice stuff that makes him a hero to me. So, it started with him when he was dismissed by that big media company, and I wasn't happy with how it went down, and basically. His wife, Jamie, he started a podcast and he started selling merchandise. And I said, you know what? I have a decent following. I said, I'm just going to promo his stuff. And Jamie was learning. I could feel that she was learning things on Instagram and posting. So I wasn't shy. I reached out to her and I said, Jamie, like you did this, or next time try this, or try that, So we kind of connected that way. And through that, I met Chris in person, and then he recognized me as the HabsCave guy. And it kind of grew from there. And it's the same thing with some other players. They have, like I said, they have questions. They reach out to me. And they're oftentimes asking me about the value of certain items. Like, it's great. Instagram, you just reach everybody, right? Like Patrick Waugh's daughter, Yana. I talk to her on a regular basis. She asked me, like, hey, my dad gave me this picture of this painting. What do you think? Is it worth it? What's it worth? Should I keep this one, or should, And I'm like, what world am I living in where,
it's surreal.
It's surreal. But that's the power of this social media. It's a double-edged sword, there's so many positives, so many negatives.
And it's always gratifying too. You mentioned Chris Nyland, when you meet some of your heroes and they live up to the expectations. So for example, for me, for baseball, it was Tim Raines as a kid. And, I've had dinner with Tim Raines. I remember sitting, he was coaching for the Blue Jays in the preseason, early on in the preseason games that were played here in the mid 2010s. And I remember sitting with him during batting practice in the stands, showing him how to use Twitter. Right. So same kind of experience that you're talking about, as it's happening, I'm like, what is this really happening?
I totally get it. And, I'll tell you a little funny story. I do a lot of charity stuff down here. We can get to that if you want to ask me about that stuff, but we had we did a charity event for, the Liam Foundation, who Chris Nyland supports, and is the ambassador for. That charity really touches my heart. And, we could talk about that a little bit later if you'd like to, and I would like to. But we had the event here. It was a great success. We raised, $4,000 to $5,000.
Well, before you get into that, tell me what is that charity?
So sure, so basically, when I created the Instagram page, oftentimes people create an Instagram page and they're trying to sell you with items. So I get asked all the time, well, what's the purpose of the page? I said, well, the number one purpose is to share my passion and to connect with other Habs fans and other collectors. So, that's like one combination. That's like one answer. And I was just getting tired of that. And I just said, you know what, I got to really find a real purpose here to use this space. And I decided, I said, you know what, I have a great bunch of guys who are like always down here for road games. I get 20, 25 guys down here, we're watching the game. I said, I want to combine this and just make it charitable. Let's do something here, and this is before I had any players down here or anything. And I said, well, how do I get this to happen? And basically, you know, like I told you the story about Chris and how I was helping Jamie, and I was at Expos Fest, and you know,
Yep, Perry Janis. Yep.
Chris was there. Yeah, you know, shout out to Perry. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
wow. I mean, he's an inspiration.
Yeah,
in my
over $1 million
100%.
raised. Yep.
Such a great inspiration to me.
Mm-hmm. For the Cat
And
D
yeah,
Foundation. Yeah.
it's just incredible. The Expos Fest, Cat D, you know, check
Mm-hmm.
that out. And so he was at a table like further up with like some like, you know, highfalutin guys. And my buddy's like, hey, Chris is there. Go talk to him. So okay, so I mustered the courage up to go to Chris Nyland, you know, like, and I said, hey, Chris, it's Sunny from HabsCave. And he was talking to, you know, it was a table of 12. He was talking to Jamie on the phone. And he goes, oh, it's Sunny here. He just hands me the phone. He goes, it's Jamie. So I'm like, okay. I was kind of stunned, and I'm like, pick up the phone. I'm like, hi, Jamie, it's Sunny. So I'm just started talking to his wife, and then Chris is like grabs me by the blazer and brings me to a corner. He's like, let's go talk over there. I'm like, okay. So and then everyone at the table is like, who's that guy? I'm like, I don't know what's happening right now. So Chris and I just started talking, and you know, it went from there. And then, you know, he told me about the charity, and I learned about the charity through Chris. And, you know, Liam is a boy who has mitochondrial disease. His father, Kevin Reason, it's a very rare disease, and it's debilitating because it hits all your mitochondrial in your cells. So you know, in his case, he's got epilepsy and high level autism, and you know, he wasn't able. The doctors told him he couldn't walk or talk ever, and he wouldn't live past 10. But with the treatment now that's being funded by the charity, he's starting to walk, and he's verbal, and we see all these changes in him, and I get to see that. I'm so privileged. Anyway, so I said, look, let's have an event. So that was my first event. I said, Chris, please come over here. You know, the guys will absolutely go bonkers, and you know, I'll raise as much money as I can. So you know, all my buddies, you know, I charged them a fee to come in. I went to certain restaurants and say, hey, look, we're doing this event. Can you help me out? Can you charge me half? A lot of great restaurants sort of pitched in and gave me deals and stuff. And I reached out to all the suppliers and friends and family I could. So I got a raffle going. All my memorabilia guys gave me something. We got a raffle going the same night. So look, we raised about $5,000 that night, and we just watched a game. Chris Nyland was here for like 2 hours watching a game with him. I mean, it's priceless, right? And at the same time, we were doing good. So, you know, that was just amazing. So to thank me, to get back to your original question, like you were talking about teaching The Rock how to use, you know, how to use Twitter, teaching Tim Raines how to use Twitter. To thank me, Chris is like, well, I want to have you over for dinner. I'm like, okay, great. I mean, this is a personal story. I hope he's not mad that I'm telling this story. But, you know, shout out to Chris. I got to tell the story, Chris, because it's, you know, it's authentic. And he goes, well, come for dinner on Tuesday. There's a Habs game. I'm like, okay, great. So, you know, Tuesday rolls around, and everyone's kind of texting me like, you having dinner with Chris? I said, yeah. And it's at his house. I'm like, okay, I figured someone's going to be there, right? And like his wife's going to be there and stuff. And you know, I messaged Chris. I was like, what can I bring? You know, like what, you know, I'll bring some pies or whatever and this and that. He's like, no, I'll cook for you. I'm like, okay, Chris Nyland's going to cook for me now. And so I show up in the evening, you know, Chris has got a roaring fire on and the game is on. Nobody's there. You know, he's got his beautiful dog, you know, Adele is there. And Chris is in the kitchen singing and cooking chicken parm from scratch. And no one else is there. And it's just like, I'm there, and I'm like, in what world there's like 8-year-old me watching Chris Nyland like on the ice, you know, doing everything, heart and soul of the team, and I'm in his kitchen now. Chris is cooking me chicken parm and serving me, and I'm just like, this is it's crazy, wild, and amazing all at the same time. And I'm just trying to keep it together personally. I'm just trying to keep it together, and this is like sort of my initial meetings with Chris. I didn't know him that well at the time, so I was just trying to keep it cool. And then my buddies are texting me like, you're on a mandate with Chris Nyland. I'm like, leave me alone. Leave me alone. And then, you know, we're watching the game and Chris is commenting on the game. And I'm like, this is just so amazing. And, you know, it was such an incredible moment in my life that, you know, like hardcore fans, I mean, these are things you dream of, right?
It's hard to describe when you have those types of moments. And people, you know, it's very rare that somebody's able to meet either their hero or somebody that they have such, you know, um, fondness for. I mentioned the Tim Raines situation. Yeah, I helped him with some things, him and his agent. And as a thank you, when he went into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2017, and this is back when my Expos Nation group was doing a lot more, we brought 3 buses down to Cooperstown of fans to see the induction ceremony. I was actually on a business trip at the time in Orlando, and I flew right in. Somebody picked me up at the Albany airport and drove me into Cooperstown.
Wow.
Luckily, I was really lucky. But the bottom line is, Tim and his agent had given me passes. So at the Baseball Hall of Fame, there's a parade always of the players down the main street, and then they all go into the Hall of Fame the night before the induction for this private, players only, and special family kind of cocktail.
Yeah.
So I got to go into this cocktail. It was literally like walking out of like the weeds in Field of Dreams. And I walk into the hall, and it's like there's Hank Aaron sitting there, and Ken Griffey's just walking by me, and there's Wade Boggs, and it blew my mind. It was absolutely I was just speechless. I mean, I had, been on radio many years and interviewed people and met people. And so I don't get starstruck, but in that situation, just,
how can you know?
A few years earlier, I had interviewed Tony Perez, former Expo, former Cincinnati Reds, great Hall of Famer, in the booth prior to a Blue Jays preseason game. So I'd met him. I ran into him. I saw him there. Not only did he remember who I was, but he remembered my name. And that blew my mind. But I was looking for somebody in the hall. I asked him if he had seen that person.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, I haven't seen him." Anyway, fast forward about 5 minutes. I'm with somebody who I got into the hall with, and I'm just chatting with them. All of a sudden, I hear Matthew in a Spanish accent. And it's Tony Perez going, "He's over there. Go over there."
Okay.
I'm like, "Thanks, Hall of Famer Tony Perez."
Yes.
Like, just the most bizarre, surreal kind of moment. So to bring it back to what you were sharing, where you're in a kitchen, and it's just like you're watching Canadians on TV with a guy who took on all comers and scored 20 goals and played with Bob Gainey, and it just that's just amazing. I know exactly how you feel.
I'm glad you got that experience. I mean, and again, it's something that is hard to describe, and it's just just trying to keep my composure in the moment is difficult at times.
And folks, for those who are watching, I met Sunny at an event in June, and we didn't have a long interaction. He gave me his card, and we stayed in touch and so forth. But there's just a general warmth and kindness and sunny disposition, really, that comes across when you engage with someone.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I want people to know that out there, that it's not just some guy who's got an ego and wants to show off his collection, and you are
there's a
who
fine
you say
line.
you are.
Yeah, and I appreciate those kind words, and I agree with you. There's a fine line there, and the thing is, if you really dig into my Instagram and see, and really look into what it's really not about showing off items, and it's just, I love the Habs, and I just love all things Habs, and
I think Sunny paused there for a second. We'll see if he comes back into the picture.
There you go. We're back.
Oh, you're back. That's all right. That's all right. It happens. No problem.
It's that's what happens, right? So,
well,
but like I was saying, there is a fine line, and I try to, I try not to come off like like a guy who's just trying to show off stuff, and I hope that I'm again, we've only met briefly, and I appreciate those kind words, and if you meet me, you'll know I only have good intentions here. I'm not selling anything. I'm not trying to make all it is pure passion. That's all it is, And I get that comment a lot when people come by. Like, my wife's a lawyer, and so I have a lot of friends that are lawyers. So they'll come by, and they'll want to have a look at the HabsCave and say, "I got to see this thing live." And inevitably, I always, it always strikes me, because I've heard this from so many people. Like, wow, they're like, all I see around here is just passion. And it's like, I don't have any passion in my life or anything I care so much about that, and I really take that as a deep compliment, because like I do everything that's in here is well curated, and I really care about every single item that's in here, and it
Yeah,
takes
but
me
Sonny,
time to display,
it's really
So
this whole collection, this whole collecting, this whole thing. It's really about connecting with other people. That's
absolutely.
really what you're about. It's
Yeah.
if you dig a little deeper, or if people are watching this and they've been in tune now for over 30 minutes,
Yeah.
it's you like hosting, you like interacting with people, you like making people smile. Some people get on a stage and tell jokes. You
Yeah.
collect things and host. That's
Oh, I
your
want to
thing.
share it
Yeah.
basically, and like I said, I started off this space. The whole goal was to have everybody here. I didn't want a space where it was just I could fill this stuff. I have way more stuff that's not on display. I can fill it up and just not move. No, you won't be able to move in here, to be honest.
Yeah. We should
And
be
that was
sponsored
not
by
the
a
purpose.
storage space
Yeah, the purpose was
company.
for getting together and watching Habs games,
Yeah.
and so I've always said that from the beginning, and that's always been my priority here. So I try not to bring anything in here that interferes with that, because that is the true purpose of the Habs Cave, is to have my
Mm.
friends and family here to watch the Habs games, right?
Yeah.
I have season tickets, but they're on the road half the season, so I get to use the space for that.
Well, listen, we could talk another 3 hours, but I want to
Oh
get you
yeah,
back to your
absolutely.
wife before she passes
Yeah.
out for the evening. I know we're recording this late, and it's it's a school night, so to speak. So,
Can I
but
tell one
I'm
more? I got to tell one more story.
100%,
Because
please.
just to touch on your story, which was fantastic. Like it's a wild story, right? If you're a baseball fan, I mean, I was lucky enough to be nominated into the Habs Fan Hall of Fame as the first.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the first inductee. So the Molson had a contest, 2 years ago, and you were supposed to nominate somebody. So apparently that I got 150 nominations, and people even sent video testimony on my behalf, which is like mind blowing to me. And they said, you got to let this guy win. So they chose me. I was so humbled. It was an incredible day. They had a banner raising ceremony at the Bell Center I have a banner with my name on it.
Wow.
Patrice Brisebois there, Matthew Dandino's there, Yuppie's there. They're raising a banner. Michel Kunta's there announcing it. And there's a DJ. I mean, this is just phenomenal. What a crazy experience they had a whole day there. The banner is still there in section 308. There's a banner there with my name on it. I'm so proud of that, and it's so amazing for them to have given me that opportunity. But along with that is they invite me to certain things sometimes. I was at that pre-draft cocktail before the draft happened, and there was only maybe 200 people in the room, but I got to talk to Jeff Molson for 20 minutes, and everywhere you look, the new ambassadors were just named. I mean, Marty St. Louis, Vinny Lecavalier, Ken Hughes, Jeff, everyone was just there, and I am, me, who's just got this basement of Habs memorabilia, and I'm here amongst these guys and just chatting. And
let me tell you something.
it just blows my mind when stuff like that happens. It's
without Hall of Famers in the last 10, 15 years, without consistent winning, and in a cluttered environment where there's so many entertainment options, including hockey, obviously, but many other sports, many other things, attention spans, all that stuff. You're an asset. You're an asset to the Montreal Canadiens. And, they look at you as an ambassador. It's 100% correct. You're showing off their legacy. You're doing their work for them. And that's fine. They know it. You know it. That's fine. But they acknowledge it. And that's the important thing.
Yeah,
they're acknowledging it.
So wonderful as a fan to be acknowledged like that.
Yeah.
And, they don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. So to me, it's just it just speaks of the organization and how classy they are. And it's just, as a Habs fan, as a sports fan, it's just this kind of stuff just, it continues to blow my mind. And, I'll continue to do the charitable stuff down here. And again, I look forward to whomever I meet in the future. And that's always,
I'm fortunate enough to have received an invite to come see it, so I will absolutely do that.
Yes, absolutely.
I can't believe you got Denny Savard coming. That is incredible, a Hall of Famer of his caliber.
So,
I still think he should be coaching somewhere, but anyway, just amazing. And the best thing I like about this conversation, we do have to cut it now. Is the fact that we haven't even talked about the record, wins or losses. It's really about the culture, the history,
Yeah.
and the
I mean,
fandom of it, and you the person. I was just
and
really
you know,
genuinely interested.
thanks for Thanks for saying that. I really try to keep the page positive. There's a million pages out there that are negative. I'm
Sure.
not interested in that. That's not my thing. I just love the Habs. I want to keep it positive, and like I said, if you want that negative stuff, there's plenty. You'll find that everywhere. So that's
So
not my thing.
HabsCave on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. And if people want just reach out to you on Instagram, that's the best
Yeah,
way. If
send
they
me a
have
DM,
questions
and
or
I try my best to answer everything, and like you said, I'm a sociable guy, so I love to meet new people. So
all
message
right.
me if
Well,
you'd like to have any questions or you want to chat. No problem. About the Habs, I'm ready and willing to talk anytime.
amazing. Amazing. This went by so quickly, the time. It was so much fun to do. So
And
thanks for
Matt,
joining me.
congrats on this new venture for
Yeah, I
you.
got to be
Are you?
consistent with it. And
Yeah, congrats.
this inspired me to do more of it. So I appreciate it, man.
Fantastic. Really keep it going, man. I mean, we miss you on the radio waves, but podcasting is the new way. So
Thank
right,
you.
yeah, keep going.